Thanks for tuning in to Curious Cat, a podcast that examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. I'm your host, Jennifer Holtz. Join me every week as I explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. I'm grateful today to be joined with author, actor, and developing medium Phill Webster. He's appeared in movies alongside Sylvester Stallone, Benedict Cumberbatch, and Elle Fanning. Phill has written his first book, Letting Glow, which has been called, quote, a thoroughly insightful and engaging read by medium and author Claire Broad. And spoiler alert, I adored it. I cannot wait to talk to him about it. Welcome to the show, Phill. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks very much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. So right off the bat, I wanted to talk to you before we dive into the book. I love that as a child, you talked to trees, you spoke to trees. And I actually find that my favorite people speak to trees even now, and I do as well. And I was wondering how you reclaimed that piece of your childhood and brought it into adulthood.
Yeah, I definitely did. I remember walking to school and there was a line of trees along the way. It was a short walk. It was maybe like 5-10 minutes or something like that, that I was, allowed to do on my own. And I just remember feeling that it was completely normal to just say hello to these trees on the way. It's funny. It's not really something I thought about until going through what I've been through the last few years and sort of reawakening, for want of a better word. And yeah, starting to talk to trees again, it seems to make sense,
Yeah.
But that's actually, funnily enough, something I did when in recent years, learning about shamanism. And one of the first meditations I did through that was kind of using a tree as a portal to just go straight into it. So that kind of, resonated and reminded me that, I used to kind of do this anyway, when I was a kid. But yeah, I guess we'll get back around to that.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to get weird because as an adult, I talk to trees too. And when I walk my dog Cooper, there's a tree specifically that I always put my hand on and I say hello to. And one time I was walking past and I saw something in the corner of my eye and it was like knee high. And I thought it was a raccoon because with my dog, he's really a terrible walker. He always barks at the other dogs. So we go at night when no one else is out on the streets. And I turned and I looked directly at it and it looked like a garden gnome, but big. And I heard this voice in my head that said, they cut down my tree. They cut down my home. And my heart just broke and it felt like something bigger than me. And I thought about it on the walk and I texted my eldest daughter who's 20, about to turn 26. And she was like, I feel like that was an actual gnome, Mom. And I think you need to leave an offering to show that you're empathetic. And so anyway, don't be afraid to get weird because I'm seeing not only trees.
Funnily enough, that's something that I came across when researching stuff. I think there's something called a dryad, which is supposed to be, at least over here, that's supposed to be like a spirit of a tree that supposedly attracts us to them. Like if you got a favorite tree, then the idea is that it's this spirit that's sort of casting a spell on you or something.
And it totally, all the trees do, but that one in particular, and they do definitely feel like elder spirits that we should be listening to more. They definitely keep us grounded and balanced and touching as above, so below. I mean, they embody that, and so yeah, we can learn a lot from trees. So you're in good company. Let's put it that way. Okay, so I also wanted to talk about, of course, we're going to talk about Letting Glow, your very first book, which I already spoiled it and I said I adored. But what would you like us right at the top before we dive into it to know about your beloved mother, Maureen?
Oh, thank you. So my mom, she passed away almost 3 years ago. Almost like in a week or so, I think it'll be the 3-year mark. Yeah, she had a tough life. She was in her mid 70s when she passed, various age related health problems, but she really did have it rough when she grew up. Her mother passed away when she was quite young, and her dad essentially kicked her out. And she went through a lot. I saw something on TV which reminded me of something that kind of triggered something in me, that she must have had a really traumatic childhood that she possibly didn't even comprehend, because I know she went through like electroshock treatment back in those days. We were talking around the 50s or something like that. So I just kind of saw something on TV last night that just made me wonder, like, did she even understand like what how much of a rough time she had? But she was a very she was a very giving person. Yeah, didn't have the best luck with relationships, but we had a really good close friendship. Of course, she would drive me nuts, at times, but generally, we got along really well, and taught each other a lot. But unfortunately, when it came to, I'd lived abroad for a long time, came back to the UK in 2017, pretty much in part to be closer to my mum as she got older. And then, of course, COVID happened, so I didn't really get to spend that much time with her in the last year, unfortunately.
Yeah. I am empathetic to your entire journey with your mother, because my father, who also passed, and it wasn't COVID related, but it was kidney related, and he was blind. And so he was hospitalized during the lockdown. And California, which was 2 states away, I was in Seattle. I'm in Denver right now, presently, but I was in Seattle. And he was the beginning and ending of my days. And we would text in the morning, and
Yeah.
we would get ourselves laughing so hard that our dogs were like barking, 3 states apart. And we were so crass and silly and rude. And so when he was hospitalized and he could not have an advocate, it was that text thread that was his lifeline. He would have told you right now, but it was my lifeline too. And we had this like dark humor that we were able to go, okay, do I need to get go to the party store and get a, nurse's costume to just sneak in and steal you away? Or what do you need from me, Dad? And so it was really difficult. And I'm a rule follower. So I believed I couldn't get in there to see him. They said he couldn't have an advocate. We couldn't come. And I abided by those
Yeah.
rules. And that was part of my grief process, is kind of grieving my experience and what I did and didn't do during it. And I wonder if that like doubled your grief journey.
I can definitely relate to that. Yeah, just I guess none of us really knew what was going on through that period of
Yeah.
time. I was just kind of thinking. So I'm based in London, and she was on a place called the Isle of Wight, which is about 2 hours away, and then a very short boat trip for like 20 minutes. But it's a very rural place, quite isolated, and which sort of like amplified whatever
Yeah.
it was that she was dealing with there. She was on her own. She'd lived alone for like 20 years or so. So yeah, I just thought I was doing the right thing by keeping away, keeping her safe, and all that kind of stuff. In hindsight, I wish I'd have done it differently. I would go and see her when restrictions were lifted and we weren't in lockdown and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got to admit there is, and maybe resentment isn't the right word, but
Reflection,
I'm kind
maybe.
of, yeah, I wish I'd have just been like, to hell with these rules, and
Mhm.
just, been cautious, of course, but, spend more time with her, because I think that ultimately, and again, she didn't get COVID either. We
Yeah.
sort of, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. We went through 2020 and we went into 2021. Um, and it looked like we were coming out of it. And then she passed from a heart attack. So it just seemed to so many people unfair,
Yeah.
particularly older people, that, sort of ended up, the last the last years like that.
Yeah. Well, and I can even empathize with being on the Isle of Wight, because my father, he lived in a teeny tiny community up the northern California
Mm-hmm.
coast, and it's called Fort Bragg, and it's the Mendocino coast. So it's a tiny town. And they have a flow of people. It's a tourist town in the summertime. And so that probably relates as well. And so I really
Yeah.
didn't want to be, even leading up to him even being ill. I was supposed to come for my birthday. It was the one thing we had planned it for a month. And right at the last minute, my dad said, you just can't. What if my tiny community, what if you accidentally bring this to my tiny community and you're typhoid Mary? And I had to respect that because it was a wish. He didn't ask a lot of me, but I respected that wish and I
Mm-hmm.
knew I could do it safely. And part of me says, why didn't I just drive there and say hello from the porch? You know, he was on the porch and I was in the yard and I would be very careful, but
Mm-hmm.
you just hindsight is 2020. And, yeah, we did the best we could.
That's it. No, yeah, no, I had a similar thing, just around Christmas. The government was saying, okay, just go home, hug your family and all that kind of thing. And then right at the last minute, they just did a U-turn. So everything was booked. She was going to come to London. And then the night before, just through, watching the news and what have you, we kind of decided against it. They were making it sound pretty
Yeah,
scary. Again, in hindsight,
we did the best we
yeah,
could. It was a crappy, crappy
yeah,
situation.
yeah. Yeah, it definitely was, and I feel like we're all, regardless of like just something I thought of lately is that it's so we're carrying on like everything's back to normal, but I feel like we're collectively still in a
I do
grieving period.
too.
It's kind of like a hangover of that whole thing, whether we lost
Yeah,
somebody or
I
not.
think it was a trauma that we collectively felt, and I can't,
Mm,
I'm not old enough to say what it was like after World War II and things, but there is definitely a collective PTSD about it as well. And I saw it with I have 20-year-old
mm,
kid, 20 and 26, and they were sheepish about getting out in the world. And so I have, they're strong women and I've always fostered that in them. And so every time that they chose to take a risk,
yeah,
I have tried to help them have a safe foundation actually, so that they felt like empowered to do that because it's scarier than ever to kind of take those risks now. And one of my daughters moved across the country for art school. The other one's here in Colorado. And you said, screw being an electrical engineer. I can make six figures, but I want to be an artist. And so they're on that journey, which
yeah,
is really freaking dope. And so I'm just, it is what you said
absolutely.
is true. We're collectively we need to be tender with each other and compassionate with each other because we
Mm,
all
mm,
have our own stories where it touched us all, and we may not even understand
yeah,
how
yeah,
and why and where, until we're looking back over the next 10 years, maybe. Who knows?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That's a very good insight. Yeah.
Well, let's lighten up a little bit. But in the book, okay, I wanted to just I'm an author as well. I write fiction. So writing nonfiction is a little bit more challenging. I feel like your editors would be a little more severe than my editors have been with me. But in the book, you share this story about an Ouija board and an experience with that. And I have to say, you were hesitant. I could feel it even as a reader to bring that forward. But that type of candor did so much to build trust with me as a reader. And I
No,
wondered if you wanted to share with us that story or if there were any other stories that maybe you kept from that book and you're like, no, fine. In the second book, you'll let it all out.
yeah, the second book's I've let a little bit too much out. I think I reread it recently because it's coming up for release, and I'm like, oh wow, did I really say that? But anyway, yeah, the Ouija board. You're completely right with that. It's kind of right at the start of the book. So I'm sort of going from what I believe were kind of early signs, talking to trees and things, and this and that little thing would happen here and there occasionally, like almost sometimes I suppose paranormal events that I dismissed. As I got older, I thought, well, did those things really happen? And then just kind of forgot about them until recently. But yeah, the Ouija board. We were around, I think, like mid-teens, something like that. And it was the '90s then, so entertainment was quite limited. Plus, I was growing up on this island, so there wasn't really that much to do. Um, and someone suggested we try it out, and me and a friend, we kind of took a shine to it, and we just sort of kept doing it outside of this group. And we believed that we contacted something. In hindsight, I can't really say for sure if we did or we didn't. I don't know. Maybe we were just connecting to our own, higher self or something along those. I know that sounds as wishy washy as
Mhm.
anything else, but something was going on. I just, through the years, I'm not really sure what it was. But yeah, something passed between us, definitely, like physically passed. We had like a sensation that, I don't know, we both experienced it and described it at the same time. Like a physical sensation, and it's just an odd one. And again, I think I just didn't really know how to interpret it at that age.
Yeah.
Um, trying to figure everything else out as well, and then I threw this into the mix, and then I think it just kind of freaked me out, and I stopped doing it. And yeah, I've heard sort of mixed stories of people's opinions about Ouija boards since. I've spoken to mediums that think they're absolutely fine. That they're a great tool to sort of open up spiritually, whereas other people will typically say, "Yeah, just don't even go near one of those things." So yeah, I just sort of try to put told the experience as it was, hopefully without much judgment either way.
Yeah, and I felt that, but it was amazing to have that story come forward, and it did. It felt like kind of a pulling. I just wonder. I have a friend who's a hypnotherapist, and it's funny
Mm.
because it'd be interesting to see if you feel like you could create a safe space to go back to it, and then kind of revisit that what occurred, and if you found out that it was something that you two were like collectively creating with your own energy or something else, or if it
Mm.
was like the higher selves going, come on, you guys have skills and we're available to you. And it scared the crap out of you,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, I wonder that I would be interested in doing that. I would love to try regression to past lives, things like
Mhm.
that. I would be totally down for anything to do with that. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll hook you up because I did that. It was really interesting. And I wasn't even trying for the past life thing, but I'm like, we went there
Mm.
with it. It was very interesting. And it explained a lot
Yeah.
of like my main phobia is claustrophobia. And I'm like, well, yeah, this
Mm.
makes so much sense with how I passed in the last life. So
Right.
yeah, it's been a very
Yeah.
interesting journey. So, turning back to your amazing book. So, I loved this passage from chapter 4 about shedding labels and starting fresh. And I have to read it verbatim. You are free to shed them all and start anew at any given moment that you choose. Right this second, you can start again. Sure, others will instantly remind you of who they want you to be, especially when you act differently, especially when you stop acting the way they expect you to. And it called to mind this moment I had with a family member over the holidays. And they sort of tried like baiting me into being a long released version of myself. And it was so weird because I saw in real time in that moment that actually it was an outpouring of their fear and from their insecurity about change and and they were about to go home where their home was empty, and I
Mm.
just kind
Mm.
of got to see it in real time. It was like, this isn't a me thing, this is actually a them thing, and I thought that was really powerful. So I'm not sure there's a
Yeah.
question
Yeah.
there. I experienced this as a soul in a meat suit, and I don't know. Other
Mm.
people are connected with our journeys, whether we like it or not, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I just again just read something. I think I was scrolling through something or other, Instagram or something, and I think I came across something that just said it's not our job to awaken others. We just awaken ourselves. Which I thought, all right, yeah, I kind of get that. I over the last couple of years going through this and telling people about it, I've got mixed emotions. Sorry, mixed responses. And I think that yeah, that part that you read out sort of came from that. People don't like it when you suddenly seem like you've clicked onto something that I don't know. It's a strange one trying to say it without sounding arrogant, but I definitely saw a shift in perspective of some of my closest friends in particular that were used to me being a certain way. Okay, that's how he does that. That's how he reacts to these things. And I kind of took a different route. And I could see some initial resistance, especially when it came to talking about supernatural stuff. As I've come to understand,
Yeah.
not everyone's comfortable with talking about it. They'll just might dismiss the subject entirely. Or one of my friends just told me directly that he's like, I just don't know what to do with this. I don't want to talk about it. And I said, it's fine. We can still talk. We
Mhm.
still have that friendship that we've got. I'm just on this journey. It doesn't change anything between us. We can still.
It's two things. I think, and this is just my opinion on it, but it's two things. It's like with my kids when I was with them every day, but it was like, once a month maybe, or, maybe quarterly, we'd mark their height on the wall. And then, but I was there every day, so I didn't see the
Mm,
change. But then when you look back and go, wow, that was a big jump in the last year or whatever. And so I think that's what sometimes you're getting mirrored back to you, is like your friends going,
yeah.
whoa, I'm seeing some change in you that's dramatic. And I don't feel like I've changed at all. And so maybe it's kind of that mirroring of like where they've been. And
Yeah.
also, I think that there's kind of from a perspective of
Absolutely.
somebody that, you see it with people that are in, rehabilitation for a dependency on alcoholism or, drug abuse or something. And they're
Mm,
like, you don't have to modify when they're on their journey and they're set in their journey. That's like, you don't have to modify your situation or the dinner plans or where we're going to go or have a dry dinner on my behalf because I'm on my journey. And it's okay that you're on a different journey. There's no judgment in
mm,
that. But maybe there's this like feeling of judgment of like, where are you? But
mm.
you're not arrogant about it. You're not telling them to be or making them believe or not believe. It's just simply, I think that they're just noting how different their journey maybe has come from you. You've like branched off, maybe.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And one friend springs to mind in particular, like when you talk about that, and I can see that that's very much part of the case as well. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I can, I can only say what I feel from your book,
Mm,
and it does not come across as arrogant at all. It comes across as, wow, this has occurred to me, and you have this at your beck and call too, but it's not on you to set people on their path. And it's not your job to deliver
mm,
messages. I mean, that's like non-consensual message delivering. I was at the grocery store the other day, and I am not a medium, and I wouldn't call myself that, but there was something, and I went, I absolutely am not going to approach this person that's just shopping for milk before it snows in Denver and tell them that their husband is behind them. Like, no, I think there's a
okay.
boundary there
Mm,
that's
mm,
non-consensual.
mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's it. I think also with the book, all I've done is just recount what I've experienced, and some of it sounds quite out there. But that's all I can do. I can't. If it resonates with somebody, then great. If it doesn't, that's fine. I totally get why. Sorry, I'm just looking at the book as I keep
Yeah,
looking down there. I would totally understand why people wouldn't buy into some of it. I still find myself being very skeptical about things. I
sure.
don't seem to be able to switch it off. It's kind of weird. Even like I say, sort of when I've recently reviewed the second book, I'm still sort of, even though I went through it and I know that that it's all true, I'm still kind of like, I don't know. I over question everything all the time. Like a few years previous to this, I probably would have had a hard time believing a lot of it. So I completely understand why some people don't
Yeah.
don't.
It's, there's a freedom, and I think there's a resignation because, now enough stuff has happened to me that I know it to be real. And for
Yeah.
some reason that like sure foundation has helped me to go, there's a resignation. It's not only
Mm.
not my job, it's like, I don't actually care. I don't want to convince
Yeah.
people. My own husband, he's businessman, he's a lawyer, he's very grounded in the truth. And then I'll
Mm.
say, well, I had a feeling about that. And he's like, well, why didn't you say it at the time? It could have stopped this from happening. I'm like, you don't believe in that stuff.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I've got a very very similar partnership.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
wonderful. Like, I think of it as balancing me. It's like,
Mm, mm,
and he keeps me kind of tethered to the here and now as well. So there
mm,
you go.
mm. Yeah.
It's it's very balanced that way. Okay, so another quote that I have to bring out that I adored in the book is our greatest obstacle to understanding consciousness is our language. And Phil,
Mm,
you've written an entire book about ethereal concepts. I mean, two books because you just told us that as well. So you had
mhm.
to gather them. I was thinking of like fog in your hands and then somehow immortalize them in your words, and you did that. Yay, you did that. But how? How did you do that? How did you describe these things that are so hard to describe?
No, that's a really interesting question. No one's asked me that before. Yeah, I really like that. I think I'd heard something similar to those to that statement and kind of twisted it a little bit. But I think so. In trying to describe these very subjective experiences, to other people, which usually come in as, like you say, a feeling, or I don't know what happened to you in the grocery store the other day, but if you actually saw somebody, but for me, everything seems to come through as a feeling and a knowing, and I might get an idea of an image of somebody in terms of mediumship. It's not as though I actually see somebody standing there. I mean, for others, I think they might do. But yeah, trying to describe these very personal, subjective experiences is kind of, yeah. I feel like trying to put it into words is really our greatest obstacle. I also feel that I'm a lot more eloquent with writing than I am with speaking. I just even trying to get a sentence out to explain these things is really difficult, to talk about such abstract concepts, like you say. But then again, as I've gone on, I do also feel that, and I sort of need to get out of my own way for this, but that I've started bringing something else through. I'll read it back and I'll be like, okay, I know I didn't write that. I'm onto a third book now, and I feel like the whole book is going in that direction. But anyway, that's another story.
Well, it's another story, and we're going to dive into it now because I feel that way as well. So, I'm a fiction writer, so it's very different, like we talked about, as the nonfiction. But at the same time, there is a sort of channeling that's happening because, it is just the process is its own. You're tapping into something bigger than you to create,
Mm.
I think. And I'm not the first person to think it. There's, it
Yeah,
goes back to
no,
Carl Jung talks about that.
Mm, mm, mm. Funnily enough, some years ago I did try to write many years ago try to write some fiction, and I was kind of I was trying to tie it into sort of historical, like the Roman Empire, this kind of thing. And I was sort of rambling and just writing as I felt, what was suitable for the book. It never turned into a book. I got halfway through and gave up. But then I looked up this stuff afterwards, and it was all there. And I
Wow.
don't believe that I subconsciously knew or something, about this. It
Mhm.
was something that I hadn't looked into before.
Yeah.
And it was there, and I was like, okay, is this something to this? And this is way before I sort of got involved in this in the spiritual stuff. But yeah, I feel like there is, I don't know, a collective consciousness of information that we might tap into, or something along those lines.
I feel that way too. I mean, I remember there was a book I had. It was a trilogy. It's for teenagers, and I remember my editor was like, "Nope, it has to be first person. It has to be through the protagonist. I don't want all these
Mm,
other subsidiary stories." And so every time I had to extract somebody else's chapter, I just put on music. I walked around the block. I just kind of was in my element. And then whoop, there it was right there waiting for
mm.
me. And
Yeah.
then, yeah. And then my fiction got a little darker with my fourth book because it was for adults. And I realized, okay, when I'm channeling kind of this character, it's much darker and I can't switch into mom mode for my kids and pick them up and, from cheer practice and, be this
Right.
like, I'm thinking about a murder right now. So I had to kind of
Mm,
let that
mm.
go for the time being. But now that they're well launched, I can do that, I suppose. I don't know if I want to or not.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to try and write fiction at some point,
Yeah.
but yeah, it doesn't seem to be on my cards for a while at least.
For now, exactly. Well, and
Mm,
I wanted
mm,
to touch base with that because letting glow, you wrote it was literally, if you want to call it that, the afterglow of your mother's passing. It was in those tender days after she passed away. And so it was a way, maybe it was almost like a grief journal in some sense. But what were your challenges about besides the language and explaining things that a lot of people don't even believe exist? But
mm,
were there
mm.
any other challenges to writing that book or getting it out there?
I feel that it was quite the opposite. I feel that it helps with the grieving process. I feel like it almost, and I hate to put it like this, but almost sort of fast tracked me through it. Of course, it's different for everyone. A friend of mine lost both of his parents around the same time, and he just kind of like boxed it up and put it away. and told me, and we'd have conversations, and occasionally he'd tell me, it's time for you to move on. And other people would tell me that, and I'd be like, it's not time for me to move on. I want to go through this. I want to feel everything, and just pour it out. And I did really struggle with losing my mum. I feel that very recently it's kind of shifted. Now it's nearing the 3-year mark, but I also think that a lot of it went into that book, and that it really helps. I think without the book, I'd still be somewhere in the middle of it, But yeah, again, like you say, with hindsight, it's kind of easier to say those things. But yeah, it did just feel like an outpouring of grief, but then delving into the whole spiritual side of things. I was learning so much. I was talking to mediums, and then learning so much about myself that it just felt like this whole new world was opening up, And I it's kind of bittersweet. I wouldn't have wrote that book if my mum was still here.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's just sent me on a completely different trajectory to what I
Yeah.
thought I was going.
Well,
Yeah.
don't you feel like, I think that, I don't think when you said fast track, you were almost apologetic for it. And then you said that you had a friend that boxed it away. I have family members that have boxed away my father's passing.
Mm,
And
mm,
so I can empathize with both sides of that. But I think that in this 24-hour news cycle, place that we live now, people are expected, oh, okay, fine. That was a week ago that your dad died. Now get
mm,
on with it. Or
yeah.
your mother in your case. And so when
Yeah.
you have a book, a project, it's like that you have an excuse, so to speak, for lack of a better word, to like dive into that every day. You get to live in your feelings every day. My
Yeah.
stepmom, who I also call my mom, she said the first rule of losing someone that you love is you can do whatever the F you want. And
Mm, mm,
and so that's how she wore it like a badge of honor. It's like, I can be this widow that is drinking too much Chardonnay at first. And then I'm the widow that is crying, constantly. And then I'm the widow that says, maybe I'm going to try something completely wild and different and go out there and travel. And then I'm going to be the widow that says, God, that was too soon. And I'm going to just be in the, fetal position. So your project gave you a channel, a way to
mm.
tap into that and be real with your emotions about that for a good period of time. And I think that it's a gift for everybody because everybody needs to know that the grief process is different for everybody, of course,
Yeah.
but allowing people to see into your grief journey helps other people to feel less isolated in their own grief journey. And it is a very isolating process.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what I hope with the book, as well as it's. I feel that some people have found it difficult to categorize. Even someone that I spoke to once said that the title didn't really do it justice, because it does talk about my own grieving process. I'm definitely not a counselor or anything like that, but I would like to think that it might help somebody
Yeah.
that's going through something similar. But
Yeah.
then at the same time, there's this esoteric element to it as well, which might not be for everybody. But that was just kind of the I don't know the glowing side of it. Yeah, sort of letting go of my mum, coming to terms with that.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, there was this whole other sort of expansion happening as well, which was positive. Yeah, it was a real sort of mixed bag of emotions.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was courageous. I'm going to throw it out there. The mama bear in me
No,
is
thank
like,
you.
that was damn courageous. And you are helping people because you're saying a grief process isn't a week, a month, a year. We will miss them for the rest of our lives because they were
Yeah,
important to our lives. And so, and
yeah.
I want to be missed like that. Shoot.
Mm,
I hope my kids are like, God, what would mom, laugh too loud about at
mm,
this dinner? What would she say,
mm,
that was inappropriate at this place with my partner or whatever? I want my kids to miss me for the long term. So it just kind
mm,
of keeps
mm.
you grounded in the present to do that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, and it's one thing I sort of say here and there, but I feel that, of course, I've lost my mum, and people have different relationships, and I can't imagine what other levels of grief may be through losing different people. But I feel that when you lose a parent in particular, that's really like the one true witness to your life. That person that's always been there, that you can always sort of, that they almost know you better than you know yourself, that they witness things that you don't even remember. So it really feels like stepping into an alternate reality, when you lose a parent that you were close with.
It totally is. And in my case, you were only child. In my case, my dad had my older brother and me, and then divorced my mom, and then had a second family who were my brother and sister as well, so much younger. And my dad always got me. Like, I, have been, my mom used to call me too much. I mean, she doesn't anymore. But she used to call me too much. And I was the kid that was a tomboy. And I was always, what were you doing outside? And you weren't just swinging on the swing set. You are wearing the playground on you. And my dad always loved that, embraced that, and got that. And to have that gone helped me to kind of have clarify, like, I actually like those parts of me, and those I'm not making excuses or I'm not going to hide those anymore. And me being too much is actually a reflection of somebody else going, I don't feel enough. I don't feel enough to know you. Yeah. So it having that parent gone, you're like, you have to be your own kind of fireplace and keep that hearth going that your beloved parent used to. And also they're a reflection when I did the crappy things. I made the awful mistakes. I did the stupid things. They're like, God, I still love you. You're amazing. And so to have that steady reflection of you being something good when you're doing crappy things.
I gotta say, sorry, I'm sort of drifting with the conversation, but yesterday I walked into won't go into the whole thing, but I walked in on a few 20-year-olds, talking amongst themselves about getting older, and I was like, I thought I can't stick around here, and I had to leave. And it was a bit rude, not that I think that I'm like that smart or anything, but I just thought I just can't listen to that. And then I got home and I thought, God, how much did our parents go through? Yes. To listen to every heartbreak and every little problem along the way that, of course it's all subjective to where you are and your journey growing up. And I'm not dismissing that, what's difficult for a 15-year-old is difficult for a 15-year-old. But I was like, God, the stuff my mum must have put up with and just kept her mouth zipped, it's like about whatever trials and tribulations I was, dealing with at the time. But anyway.
Isn't that the truth? And that's why, oh my God, and that's why we will miss them. And it's like just having that recollection, that kind of that moment. I had a moment like that I was at Barnes and Noble at the bookstore, and I was working on, I was actually finishing your book, and I was working on questions, loose questions. And there were these, they must have been at the most 20, and they were doing the same thing. It's like, oh, in the new year, and oh, he dumped me again. And oh, and part of me was like, I just wanted to go over and then just squeeze their bones and just go, you're going to be okay. Your older self is looking down and you're going, that was nothing, and you are made of the tough stuff. But I just sat there and I drank my matcha tea and I just let them be because that wasn't what they needed.
I mean, exactly. And when you're in it, we've all been in it. So I'm just trying to sort of,
totally.
Perspective,
And it's everything. Well, we're running up against, we're well past the half point, and I want to take a quick break so that we can hear from my amazing, my podcast promos. But when we come back, I will be asking Phill about my favorite subject, and that'll be on the flip side. Hint, it's not life.
Ever wanted to astral project?
Speak to a loved one who's passed?
Heal people with just the touch of your hand?
Well, you won't learn how to do that on this podcast, but you will hear from those that can.
The Skeptic Metaphysicians podcast is not your typical dry and boring metaphysics show. It's a fun exploration of metaphysics, spiritual awakening tools, modalities, and personalities that's as entertaining as it is informational.
Join hundreds of like-minded souls who are growing and expanding their consciousness at skepticmetaphysician.com.
Discover the Skeptic Metaphysicians,
your new metaphysical obsession.
Hey everybody, Karen Rontowski here. I hate to interrupt the Curious Cat podcast, one of my favorites, but if you want to double your paranormal fun when you're done here, come check out my show, Paranormal Karen. I interview exorcists, demonologists, healers, psychics, really anyone that can make a family gathering uncomfortable is on my show. If you want to see everything I do, go to KarenRontowski.com. And I know you're thinking, that sounds hard to spell. Well, it is. I have misspelled it on hundreds of tax forms. So if that doesn't work for you, go to psychicstandup.com or paranormalkaren.com. There you can find my Patreon, you can book a tarot reading, you can take a tarot class, you can find everything, including my stand-up comedy clips. That's right, I've been doing stand-up for 30 years. If you go to those places, you can also see my psychic stand-up show where I mix psychic and tarot readings. Yes, the future never looked so funny. So check me out at KarenRontowski.com, ParanormalKaren.com, or PsychicStandup.com. And can someone please find me a marketing person to put all this in one place? Now back to the show.
Hello again. Okay, as promised, I'd like to dive into a very taboo subject for most, death. And I have to say, Phill, I felt a kinship with your passages about there being no death. Only a different type of life after this physical iteration of us is exhausted. The quote is that was in your book. It was a famous quote. I can't remember who it was. Nothing disappears without a trace. That was one. And another was something like nature doesn't know extinction. All it knows is transformation. And I know for myself, I'm certain those truths are real after my own soul's journey. And it's a great comfort to me, probably the ultimate anxiety extinguisher for me. Because I found my soul family countless times before. And I always tell my kids, I'll find you again. So it's a comfort to me. But for listeners on the fence, it's not your job to compel them to believe, but where does your sense of this come from? Would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, I feel that I've over the years, I kind of dipped in and out of cynicism through the years. In my 30s, I was running bars and nightclubs and kind of seeing people at the worst. I wasn't that great myself at the time. I wasn't like a horrific person or anything, but, kind of self-indulgent and very egocentric at the time. And I remember trying to believe that there's probably nothing beyond this, that was kind of like my attitude at the time. I was kind of walking around like that. But I think at my core, I still held this belief that you don't really believe that, like I was just walking around trying to be angry at the world or whatever. But I think in my core, I've always felt that of course there's more, of course there's more than this. And then, a few things happened along the way, that you read about, a couple of really profound, moments, what I thought were, looking back were spiritual awakenings, I believe. And it seemed that every few years they would sort of tap me on the shoulder. And some of them were really huge. But again, I would just sort of dismiss them and go and sort of put them behind me. And then, of course, my mum passing and then something that happened around my mum passing really just made me sort of deep dive into this whole thing. And when I started opening up to it again, it seems to resonate with my higher truth. I really feel that it makes much more sense that we continue. Like yourself, my partner, my fiance, she doesn't buy into any of this, and I can only respect that, but I just don't agree with it. I don't look at, if we're talking about a creator of some sort, a lot of people sort of connect religion to talking about God or something like that, which I don't think that has to be exclusive at all, as, spiritual, I'm sure a lot of your listeners already know. But yeah, the things that I've experienced over these last couple of years confirm to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that we go on, and that's mainly been based around talking to mediums, learning about mediumship myself, giving other people evidence of loved ones that have passed over that I know that isn't from me at all, and I'm starting to recognize how it comes in, that it's sort of outside of my usual jumbled mess of thoughts. that it's like this other stream of information coming in, and I don't know how it works. I don't really know. I know how to do it, or I'm learning how to do it. I don't know the mechanics of it, but yeah, it seems like beyond a shadow of a doubt for me. I don't know if that was any use to anyone, but
it totally was it totally was of use. I love it because I'm not, so we have a boundary. I'm not supposed to talk about my 26 year long husband on the podcast, but I can say this because this is my journey that I express here. And I can totally empathize with you because he is very much grounded in the here and now. But his father passed away before our second daughter was born. So it's been a number of years. And I mean, a number, like 20, well, Bryn's 20. So it's been over 20 years. And I have this new job, which my listeners know about, where I pass on, I help people that reach out to me when I'm sleeping, not on my own. If they're kind of stuck in that in-between space, I help them to pass on to the beyond. And it's been like a work in progress, and it's been really interesting. And I didn't believe it for the first 6 months it was happening. But what was interesting is because I had this dream, but actually was a crossing over, and I was in a waiting room, like a doctor's waiting room. And I was sitting next to my father-in-law, Doug Sr., and he was so handsome, and he was always so sharply dressed, and he had this gorgeous suit on. And I was just so overjoyed to see him. And I was like, "You're here. How long have you been waiting here?" And his suit was perfectly pressed, and he had this button-down shirt and this beautiful tie. And he said, "It's been a long, long time." And I started looking closer at him, and it's like he realized how long it'd been. And all of a sudden his suit was showing fraying on the edges of the seams and his buttons, and there was a little staining. And I said, "Are you hungry? Are you thirsty?" And he said, "I don't have any need for that here." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "Can I keep you company?" And he said, "Yes." And I held his hand, and an orderly came at him, and it was like a very dark figure. And I started like yelling at him. And I said, and the funny thing is my father-in-law was like 6'4", very tall. He was a hero in World War II. And I'm like 5'2" if I stand on stones. And so I stood up between him and the orderly, and I said, "That is inappropriate. You can absolutely not speak to him that way." And I said, "Get away from him." And I said, would you like to go home?" And Doug said, "I would like that very much." And I walked him home. So I woke up and I wrote it down in my dream journal. I went, I actually think I crossed him over. And then my husband had gotten it up before I had, and he was down there checking emails downstairs. And I got coffee, and I said, "I just had a dream about your dad." And he goes, "Jen, I dreamt about my father too." And he had tears in his eyes, and we both had goosebumps. So even though he doesn't believe it, we had this moment of like, my father-in-law had put himself in a sort of purgatory because he somehow didn't think he had made amends with everybody he wanted to before he passed. And he was going to be there in perpetuity. And then he decided to allow me into the waiting room. And I was like, "Wait a second, you've been here a long time." And it'd been over 20 years. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing. So who knows where you and your partner's journey will go, because that's where Doug's like, "I don't believe in that stuff. I don't even believe in ghosts." And then he'll go, "Oh my God, I dreamt of my father too."
Yes, it's interesting. I with Laura as well. I took her to watch a medium here called Gordon Smith. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's kind of like, right. He's kind of like England's or the UK's James Van Praagh kind of guy. He's very, very accurate. And I thought, well, and I'd experienced platform mediumship before, but I thought, okay, if I'm going to show her this, I'm going to take her to see him. There's no way that she can't be convinced by him. And he was reading off names and street names and descriptions and stuff like that. And afterwards, I was like, all right, well, clearly you believe. And she's like, "Yeah, no, it's pretty weird." I'm like, well, of course it's weird, but it still doesn't budge. It still doesn't budge. So I think for some people it's just not.
I don't think so either. Same with Doug. Doug will be like, "Well, they could Google that, or they probably did this research beforehand, or whatever." So I totally empathize. I love it. I really do believe that we picked our partners because they kind of balance us out. And it's like, again. Yeah.
No, definitely
So in the
don't.
book, you talk about your journey to get to know your guides. Like you talk about your animal guide, and then you talk about, I want to learn about your guide. So are you still on the journey to learn who your guide is or guides and how
Mm.
you communicate with them? I was just curious about that.
I definitely am. I feel that I've had a couple of. I'm getting books mixed up now and what I wrote and which one. But yeah, in the early days, I did. I believe I was introduced to one at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I sort of I was learning about mediumship, and people were saying, well, you should find a name that resonates with you and stuff like that. They probably won't give you a name themselves, so I kind of went through all that. But yeah, at the moment, again, writing a third book, I'm definitely getting help with it. I mean, it's them, it's not me, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I haven't even asked like who I don't think I don't know, because people have different ways of doing it, but I don't think it really matters that much in naming them
Yeah.
or saying, I've got an American Indian or Jim Morrison or whoever, it's
Yeah.
if it works, then I'm like,
That'd
well,
be so cool. I really want Ram Dass.
yeah. I mean, but again, I feel like I'm really early on in my journey. Maybe I'll look at this differently in a few years. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not pretending that I know any more than I do. So yeah, it's just been like a learning process, and I'm just sort of documenting it as I go. Yeah.
Well, do you feel like you're being greedy if you ask them? Because they're just waiting to give you that information. They're always around us. So
Yeah, it's interesting because the stuff that I'm writing at the moment is way smarter than me. I know it's not me. I'll go back and I'll have to reread it a couple of times, some of it, and I'm like, okay, actually, that does make sense. That I know that's not from me. I'm like asking questions that I specifically don't know, but names for some reason, I don't know. I just I haven't gone there.
fair enough. That's fair enough. Well, I'm not a name person anyway. I like people can have name tags, and I'm more a face person and a voice
Yeah,
person than a name
terrible
person.
with
So
names. Yeah.
maybe I don't know if that's you too. Yeah.
I'd never remember anyone's name. Yeah, maybe.
Well, it's funny because when I started doing this morning meditation, when I went on this like journey myself, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll just take time every morning to just kind of listen to my guides and see what they have to say. And I was out of my pen were coming these words that like a name that I didn't know. And then we're like, look it up. And I'd look it up and I'm like, oh, Raziel, he's become my favorite angel that I never knew about. And he's a angel for magicians, and he assists. He's a puzzle. If you think about a puzzle, he puts together puzzle pieces. And my God, he shows up in these prisms or like little rainbow snippets whenever I'm trying to put together things. He's like, I'm on the case. Just calm down. I've got all the people on this. So just calm the heck down. So I don't know. So names may not be important unless it sends you down a rabbit hole of research like me.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
pretty soon you're in Depends and you're on newspapers.com for 5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I did get a name initially for one, but then since then, I believe that whatever's happening with me at the moment, that's not that guide.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm just sort of letting this go, and maybe at the end of this whole dialogue that I'm going through at the moment, maybe they'll give me a name. I don't know. Let's see.
Maybe. In the book, I really wanted to ask you about this first. In the book, you mentioned thin places. I had goosebumps when I was reading that part. And for people that don't know, thin places are spots where the veil is maybe thin, so you kind of can feel maybe other dimensions or spiritual realm kind of coming forward. And how you talk about the thin places, I think that a lot of people intuitively kind of pick up on those places. But do you have any sense of like how we can be more open to looking for them, or I don't know, how we can identify them better?
Yeah, I feel that for me, it's typically in nature. I think I've experienced that with places as well. I mean, I live in London. Right across the street from me is like a very busy train station, so I've kind of got a lot of people around all the time. It's very difficult to find a spot where there isn't anyone. So it's kind of, I don't know. I would imagine that I don't really sort of pick up on that when there's plenty of other energy around, when there's people just constantly pushing and shoving by. But yeah, again, sort of looking back on things over the years, and this also sort of came from a tree, actually. There's one specific tree in a place called Richmond Park, which is like acres and acres of woodland, close by, sort of on the outskirts of London. It very much feels like being it's essentially the countryside, but we've still got access to London. But yeah, there was one specific point, one tree that just really, I don't know, it's just resonated with me in that spot. And I always go there. That'll be my sort of, anytime I go into the park, I'll head to that tree. I might meditate there or something like that. But yeah, I felt it around other places. I mean, typical obvious ones are sort of castles. I know you don't have a lot of those over there. But you'll sort of pick up on that. And I've wondered as well, do we pick up on that because there's a castle there, or would we pick up on it anyway? Is there a castle there because somebody else picks up on that spot? That you sort of feel that energy in that area, and then it becomes this special place. Yeah, I feel that there are definitely those spots that we can sort of tune into. As for sort of finding them purposefully, I would just say, perhaps just sitting in meditation before you go on a wander somewhere and see what you come up with. Yeah.
But that was such a good point you made in the book. You were like, was it a significant place because it was like a thin place? And so they commemorated it with building something and then building something else over it, that really resonated with me.
Yeah, exactly. We've got Stonehenge and other places kind of escape me at the moment across the world, where we've got these sort of monuments that align with various times of the year. And I'm going to just make myself sound stupid if I try to go into it too much.
I experienced one recently and I didn't even connect it until right now. So if you, after we're done with if you don't know about Red Rocks in Colorado, it's like right through those windows right there. It's a place called Red Rocks. It's an amphitheater that they carved into this already like red stone that's just massive. And I brought my mom, she was here for the holidays, and I always wanted to take her out to show her something new every day. And so I said, it's really important that you see Red Rocks, even though there's no concerts because it's wintertime, right? And there was this one part of the Red Rocks when you're leaving and going toward the freeway. So most concert goers or yoga doers that go there for the yoga classes wouldn't notice it, but it was like the stone was there, and then there was this like little gap, but it was like there was this thin red stone, and you almost wanted to look away because it looked so spooky, but yet you couldn't look away. It was very compelling. So I wonder if that's a thin spot.
Well, yeah, just while we're on it, I recently had the most random experience a couple of months ago, just through acting stuff. I'm not really pursuing acting. I've done it. I feel like writing is more my medium. But an opportunity came up, and it was just so out of the blue, which is a whole other story entirely. I was meditating on sort of timelines and jumping timelines and stuff like that. And then I got this phone call from a guy that I hadn't spoke to in 4 years, who offered me a job playing the lead role in a TV show that was being filmed in Iraq. And I was like, what? Right. Anyway, point being, I went there to a place called Kurdistan, and we did a lot of the filming in a citadel, which was essentially like an old castle, like a fortress sort of built on this mound, and they built in it. And it's supposedly the oldest inhabited like place, like citadel in the world, in what was ancient Mesopotamia, And I thought, okay, and essentially where, as far as we know, spiritual writing was first discovered, right? But going way back. And I thought, well, what are the chances of supposedly the spiritual writer now? And then I go to the birthplace of spiritual writing, and I was really kind of excited about going to this place, thinking that I'm going to put a hand on a wall or something and just get this, I don't know, be transported back to
Exactly.
to the Black Sea or something. Nothing for the whole time. I was there like for a month, every day in the same place. Nothing. I mean, it was very interesting to be there, but in terms of any sort of spiritual revelations, nothing. I didn't feel a thing. And that's supposedly like the mecca of thin places.
Okay, but I'm dying because I feel like my guides are like literally swirling around me right now, because they're saying when you okay, when you go to bed and if you have automatic updates on your computer, I swear to God, this relates. You don't necessarily see the new software that's in place unless it's something like brash, like a new, I don't know, they put a new wallpaper on. You're like, I don't want that. I want my picture back. But you don't actually realize it. So I feel like you got to, like, they plugged in the software, they downloaded what they needed to, and you may not even notice because you're just like going to be slowly installing that software.
That's a
Your
really good
higher
point.
self is.
Yeah. No, I really like that. Yeah, maybe that's the point because I don't really see like the bigger reason why I went to that place. It's not a place that I would have ever gone to, through.
But they set it up. You said it yourself. You were doing this time
Mm.
jumping, and they're like, "Hey, you're gonna have a
Yeah,
whole new set of tricks." Yeah,
that was it. It was crazy. It was like 2 weeks later, I was suddenly in Iraq, a place that I never would have gone to, like as far as I was concerned.
wow.
Yeah, it was really odd. Really odd.
That is so odd. Okay, I can't wait because that's going to become a book, I think, in the future, and you'll have to come back and talk
Yeah,
about
I'll talk about it.
that. Okay, now this is, I just have to ask you because you were saying that year 3, I'm on year 3 with my father's death. It's crazy how they parallel in certain ways. And when I was up against his like year 1 and year 2, it was so tender on his anniversary. And I had this ritual because my dad loved a maple bar. Do you have maple bars in England? The like soft donuts with the maple kind of coating. It's a very decadent kind of donut.
Right.
And so my dad loved them. And so I would always get his picture, put it in the middle of the kitchen so that the whole, anybody that was in vicinity was alerted to the fact that this is my father's death day. Beware of Jen. And also, it was his day. So I'd give him the maple bar. And then my dog Cooper would always find the most creative ways to steal my dad's maple bar. So year 3, it didn't feel so tender. And I thought, it's going to hit me. The grief's going to hit me. And I put out the maple bar for Dad. And then I was like, Dad loves it. Cooper probably gets his maple bar, but I got a second maple bar and I just gave it directly to my dog. And it was a much more joyful and bittersweet anniversary. And you're like a week away from that. So I've been thinking of you.
No, yeah, thank you. I've been thinking a lot about it as well. I would tend to mark it by going to this place. There's this hillside in a place called Hampstead. For some, I don't know why I did this. My mom actually never went there, but I always wanted her to go there. But anyway, I would sit up there with a bottle of Prosecco, something like that. I'll take a few flowers, maybe write a card, and I'll just sit there and I'll drink that. And then the last couple of years, I've met my partner and we'll go to a restaurant and just sort of, acknowledge it through that. But this year I was thinking, I don't know if it can be, I don't know. It's just the whole, I'm planning on not drinking for all of January as well anyway. And I thought, well, I just don't think it really matters. I don't need to bring the Prosecco into it. I don't know what I'm going to do this year. Probably still go up there, but I might leave the Prosecco behind. So yeah,
fair enough. And your mom's like, that's great too. I'm here all the time. And every time you go up there, she's like, I'm getting to see it. This is my 3rd time getting to see it with you.
Yeah, no, I really believe that. Yeah, I've had a couple of experiences where I think that she's let me know that she's appreciated seeing somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So we are in the tender days of the new year, and I didn't want to jump over thin places to get to this. And I'm just wondering, like, what are you hoping for? Not like intuition, but what are you hoping for the new year, for just collective humankind?
Oh, right. Yeah. That's a big one, especially just, with what's going on at the moment in that area that I just was, which again was kind of nuts. Just leaving there as it seemed to be sort of edging closer to where I was, although it actually didn't, and hopefully won't. It did become apparent that, there were a few people telling me that, okay, you should probably get out of here at this point, as a Westerner. But anyway, I hope that stops to start with. It's crazy that we're still, like arguing over religions and people killing each other. It's obviously horrendous. I hope that comes to an end. And then also just that we start looking at things from a different perspective. The old ways aren't working anymore, right? This country in particular I'm not really that into politics, but sometimes you can't sort of help see what's going on at the moment. And at the moment, this place isn't working. It's not even the place that it was when I came back in 2017. I think a lot of people are struggling.
Yeah.
So I hope that we can look at that with some perspective and sort of with a fresher outlook that those archaic ways of ruling the world are outdated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love that, I agree because I think that there's been a little bit of glitter that's been like power washed away that I'd like to come back, hope for peace and that every single soul makes a difference. These elected, I'm not into politics either. I actually super stay away from it. But, just people that cede their power to, well, they're in charge. It's like, actually, we're the bigger majority. And if we say not being in war and being compassionate and taking care of one another is the most important thing. And if we collectively send our energy there, I think we're seeing things shift right now because of it. I really do. I hope I'm right. Yeah. It's like the death knell of this old way of being. And I hope that there's something, I really feel it in my bones. There's something brighter and more beautiful in the future. To me, it goes back to that puzzle. It's like a 1,000-piece puzzle and we've been working it. And we're on that last piece that's so gratifying when it settles into place. You're like, oh my God, that was so easy. And we're collectively, we can go ahead and forget how much work it took us to get here. But
yeah, I hope so. And I feel like it should be like that. And just the fact that we're having conversations like this and more and more people seem to be, then that's hopefully, and hopefully going in the right direction. Yeah.
I think so too. That's my hope too. Okay. So of course we've surpassed the hour mark of a delicious conversation. I know. But before we close, can you please tell my listeners where they can find you, where they can find the book, where they can connect with you to get the latest news when your new book is out and the third book is out, the fourth and 85th?
That would be good. Yeah, definitely. So this is the book. I've been keep looking at it. There it is, Letting Glow. It's available at all the usual bookstores. If they haven't got it, then just ask for it. During my research, it seems to be everywhere, across the States and everywhere else as well. As for me, I've got a website, phillwebster.com. That's Phill with 2 L's. I'm probably most active on Instagram. I'm dabbling with TikTok, but it's a slow process. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. And I welcome any emails from people that anyone that wants to reach out and talk about these things.
Ah, that's great. I hope you'll come back to Curious Cat. I loved sharing the book was so amazing. I don't think, just saying that even does it justice, but it was really a wonderful read. I can't wait to pick up the next one and ping you with questions about it as well and bug you. And I'm just looking forward to it. And I really hope people take the time. I will have all your links in the show notes and for the website, for places they can find it in the UK and the US. And I will be telling my podcast sisters, please get Phill on your podcast.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you very much. No, thank you. It's been really nice talking to you, and thanks for all the kind words about the book. Yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's so well deserved. Please come back. I can't wait to talk again.
Absolutely. All right.
Thank you for listening to Curious Cat. Did you hear the good news? Curious Cat is number 20 on the top 100 list of best supernatural podcasts on Good Pods. Hooray! Be sure to subscribe on your favorite listening app. And if you love the content, recommend us to a friend. Until next time, stay curious. I love you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Holtz, spelled HOTES.com.